It's a strange question to ask. What can God not do? We usually think about what God can do. He can create worlds. He can part seas. He can heal the sick and raise the dead. The Bible tells us he is all-powerful, omnipotent. Nothing is too hard for him. That's the story we know. That's the God we hear about. So the idea that there's something he cannot do feels wrong. It feels like a trick question, a riddle. If God is God, shouldn't he be able to do anything? Absolutely anything at all? And yet the Bible is very clear. There's one thing God cannot do. It's not a limitation of his power. It's not a weakness. In fact, it's the source of his greatest strength. It's the very thing that makes him God. God cannot lie. That's it. That's the answer. It sounds simple. Maybe too simple. But the more you think about it, the more you realize how massive that one simple fact is. It changes everything. The book of Titus puts it plainly. It speaks of the hope of eternal life, a hope which God, who cannot lie, promised before the ages began. It's not that God chooses not to lie. It's not that he finds lying distasteful. The writer says he cannot lie. It is an impossibility for him. It's outside the realm of his capability. The book of Hebrews says the same thing. It talks about God's promise to Abraham. To make it absolutely certain, God made an oath. The writer says this was done so that by two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled for refuge might have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. Again, that word impossible, not difficult, not unlikely, impossible, this isn't a new idea. Way back in the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, a man named Balaam is trying to curse Israel, but he can't. He says, God is not a man, that he should lie, or a son of man, that he should change his mind. Has he said, and will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? The message is consistent from the beginning of the Bible to the end. God's very nature is truth. A lie is a contradiction of who he is. It would be like a fire trying to be cold. It just doesn't work. It's not in its nature. Truth is not just a policy for God, it is his essence. He doesn't just speak truth. He is truth. Jesus himself said, I am the way and the truth and the life. He didn't say, I show the truth. He said, I am the truth. So, why is this so important? Why does it matter that the one thing an all-powerful being cannot do is tell a lie? Because everything else rests on it. Everything. Think about our world. It's built on a shaky foundation of broken promises. Politicians make promises they can't or won't keep. Advertisements make promises about products that don't deliver. Even the people we love the most can let us down. They promise to be there, and something happens. They promise to be faithful, and they fail. We promise ourselves we'll do better, and we break that promise by breakfast. Our entire human experience is filled with the fallout of lies and broken commitments. We are so used to it that we become cynical. We expect to be disappointed. We expect the fine print. We expect the catch. But with God, there is no fine print. There is no catch. When he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, he cannot be lying. Like, it's not a motivational poster, it's a statement of fact from a being for whom lying is an impossibility. When he says that if you confess your sins, he is faithful and just to forgive you, that's not a maybe. It's a certainty. It has to be, because the one who made the promise cannot break it. His word is as solid and real as the ground beneath your feet. More so, actually. The ground can shake. His word cannot. This one inability of God is the bedrock of all faith. If God could lie, even a little, then nothing he says could be trusted. The entire Bible would become a collection of suggestions, not promises. The hope of heaven? Maybe. The forgiveness of sins? Perhaps. The promise of his presence? Could be. The whole thing would unravel. Faith would be pointless because you'd be putting your trust in a being who might be crossing his fingers behind his back. You could never be sure. But because he cannot lie, you can be sure. His character is the guarantee. This idea, however, goes even deeper than just telling lies. The reason God cannot lie is because it would violate his own nature. And this points to a broader truth. God cannot do anything that contradicts who he is. He cannot deny himself. A verse in 2 Timothy says it perfectly. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. Think about what that means. We mess up, we doubt, we fail, we are inconsistent and unreliable. Our faith wavers. But God's faithfulness to us doesn't depend on our faithfulness to him. It depends on his own character. He is faithful because that is who he is. To be unfaithful would be to deny his own nature, and that is the one thing he cannot do. So what is his nature? What are the things he cannot deny? He cannot be unholy. God is described as holy, holy, holy. This means he is completely separate from sin, from evil, from darkness. or sin is everything he is not. So God cannot sin. He cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. To sin would be to deny his perfect goodness and purity. It would be a contradiction of his very essence. This is incredibly good news. A God who could sin would be a monster. A being with infinite power but a flawed character would be the ultimate cosmic tyrant. He could be cruel, selfish, or abusive, but a holy God is a safe God. His power is always directed by his perfect goodness. He cannot be unjust. The Bible is filled with descriptions of God as a God of justice. He is the righteous judge. Justice isn't just a rule he follows, it's a part of his character. This means he cannot ignore sin. He can't just sweep wrongdoing under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. That would be unjust. A corrupt judge who lets the guilty go free is not a good judge. God's justice required that sin be dealt with. This is why the cross is so important. It wasn't just a random act of violence, it was God's perfect solution to a perfect problem, how to be both just punishing sin and the justifier for forgiving sinners at the same time. He couldn't deny his justice, so he satisfied it himself. He can't simply let people off the hook because that would violate his nature. He has to deal with it. And he did. He cannot be unloving. John, one of Jesus' closest followers, wrote something profound. He didn't just say, God is loving. He wrote, God is love. It is his very being. Love isn't just an emotion he feels or an action he takes. It is the very substance of his character. Therefore, God cannot act in a truly unloving way. This can be hard to understand sometimes. We see suffering in the world and we question his love. We experience pain and wonder where he is. But his inability to be unloving means that even in the things we don't understand, his ultimate motive is love. His discipline is love. His justice is an expression of a holy love that values what is right and good. He cannot act out of pure malice or spite because that would be a denial of who he is. He cannot change. I, the Lord, do not change, God says in the book of Malachi. This is called his immutability. His character, his promises, his nature, they are constant. They were the same 1,000,000 years ago as they are today, as they will be 1,000,000 years from now. This is a huge comfort. People change, our feelings change, our circumstances change. The world changes at a dizzying pace, but God is the one fixed point in a spinning universe. His love for his children doesn't depend on his mood. His promises don't have an expiration date. He doesn't get tired of being good or bored of being faithful. He is eternally, constantly himself. He cannot be anything else. So when we say God cannot lie, we are really saying God cannot be inconsistent with his own perfect character. He cannot be unholy, unjust, unloving, or unfaithful. He is bound by the perfection of his own nature. This brings us to the old paradox, the one people like to use to try and trip up believers. If God is all-powerful, can he make a rock so heavy that he cannot lift it? It sounds like a clever question, a real gotcha, but it's actually based on a misunderstanding of what all-powerful or omnipotent means. Omnipotence doesn't mean the ability to do anything you can imagine, it means the power to do anything that is logically possible and consistent with God's own nature. The question, can God make a rock so heavy he cannot lift it, is a logical contradiction. It's like asking, can God draw a square circle, or can God create a married bachelor? The words themselves are nonsense. A circle, by definition, cannot be a square. A bachelor, by definition, cannot be married. The question cancels itself out. In the same way, asking God to create a rock he cannot lift is asking him to defeat himself. It's asking an unlimited being to create a limitation for himself that he cannot overcome. It's a self-contradictory statement. God's power cannot be used to defeat his own power. True omnipotence isn't the power to be illogical or self-contradictory. It's the infinite power to do anything that is in harmony with truth and with his own character. He can speak a universe into existence. He can hold every atom together. He has the power to forgive sin and to transform a human heart. He has the power to defeat death. He has all power that is worth having. The ability to make 2 + 5 or to cease to exist are not powers, they are absurdities. So, God's inability to do certain things isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of his absolute, unwavering strength and integrity. Imagine you needed to hire a treasurer for your company. You have 2 candidates. Candidate A says, I have complete freedom. I can do anything I want with the money. I can follow the books, or I can steal it all. I am free to choose. Candidate B says, I cannot steal. It is against my nature. I am bound by my own integrity to be honest and transparent in all my dealings. It would be impossible for me to cheat you. Which one would you hire? You'd hire candidate B, of course. His inability to steal is not a weakness. It is his greatest qualification. It is what makes him trustworthy. It's the same with God, but on an infinite scale. The fact that he cannot lie, that he cannot be unfaithful, that he cannot deny his own perfect nature, is the very reason we can trust him completely. His limitations are the guardrails of the universe. They are what make him dependable. This changes how we should see our relationship with him. It means we can have absolute trust in his word. When we read the Bible, we are not reading a book of suggestions or a collection of inspiring myths. We are reading the promises of a God who cannot lie. This means we can build our lives on what it says. When Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," we can believe. Yes, we can actually find rest in him because his invitation is from a source of absolute truth. It means our security is not based on our performance. Remember that verse? If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. Our salvation and our relationship with God do not hang by the thin thread of our own consistency. They are anchored in the massive, unmovable reality of his character. He holds on to us not because we are so good at holding on to him, but because he is faithful. He made a promise, and it is impossible for him to break it. This should give us a profound sense of peace and security. It's not about us being perfect. It's about him being faithful. It gives us a solid hope in a chaotic world. The world is full of uncertainty. Economies collapse, relationships break, health fails. There is so little we can count on to be the same tomorrow as it is today. But God is our anchor. He cannot change. His love is not a passing emotion. His justice is not a temporary policy. His promises are not subject to market fluctuations. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. This provides a foundation for our lives that nothing on earth can offer. When everything else is shifting sand, his character is solid rock. And it gives us comfort in our suffering. When we go through hard times, it's easy to feel like God has forgotten us or that he is cruel. But remembering who he is and who he cannot be changes our perspective. We know that because he cannot be unloving, he is not taking pleasure in our pain. Because he cannot be unjust, he will one day make all things right. Because he cannot be unfaithful, he has not abandoned us, even when it feels like he has. We may not understand our circumstances, but we can know his character, and his character is our comfort. It is a strange and wonderful thing to think about. The most powerful being in existence is not a being of random, unlimited whim. He is not a cosmic force that could do anything at any moment for any reason. He is a God of character, a God of integrity, a God who is bound not by an outside force, but by the glory and perfection of his own being. He cannot lie, he cannot fail, he cannot be unfaithful, he cannot deny who he is. This is the one thing God cannot do, and it's the best news in the universe. It means that the one in charge of everything is perfectly, completely, and eternally good. It means that his promises are more certain than the sunrise. It means that his love is a fact, not a feeling. It means that in a world of lies, we can know the truth. The all-powerful God has a cannot. And that cannot is the source of all our hope. It is what allows us to trust him, not just with our Sunday mornings, but with our deepest fears, our greatest longings, and our very lives. It is the firmest ground there is. He is who he says he is. He will do what he says he will do. He has to. It's his nature.